Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Outbound for Dummies. Outbound for Dummies is a series of learning sessions from Outplay, brings you the essential tips and tricks to master your sales process and help you achieve your sales targets, something that every sales rep looks for every month, every quarter, and every year. I'm Praveen. I'm from the founder's office at Outplay. With over 20 years of selling software predominantly in my life, majority of my life, I've always been very intrigued and always wanting to learn from the experts. And today I have one such, Monica McIlroy. Amazing to have you, Monica, today for Outbound for Dummies.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Lovely. A quick introduction about Monica. She's the business development manager at BizDev Labs. She's also the founder at McIlroy Marketing and talks frequently about outbound sales, social selling, and of course, business development. And she also helps build GTM motions for early startups. Wonderful, right? Before I jump on to the discussion with Monica, I'm going to give you a quick glimpse of what we're going to talk about today. Today's topic is going to be something that all sales reps can resonate with: how to implement a winning LinkedIn outbound strategy, right? It's been about 20 years since LinkedIn was launched, and it's pretty much grown exponentially, at least in the last 5, 6 years, right? I mean, we know the entire B2B community is there on LinkedIn. Hundreds of job posts happen every hour, maybe, or every minute. I don't have the stats, but I'm sure you all see that noise happening on LinkedIn. So many pages, so many newsletters, ads, and every company, every individual wants to do a lot of social branding on LinkedIn. So with so much happening, how do we break through the clutter? How do we break through the noise and have probably a well-defined strategy for outreach? That's exactly what we're going to talk and know better than Monica today. All right, Monica, let me straight away jump on, nothing to beat around the bush. Tell me this. What are your top 3 strategies for successful outreach on LinkedIn?
Okay, so the first thing I'll say is really not viewing LinkedIn as the whole picture. So I like to have a lot of really small micro interactions with my prospects on LinkedIn, but I also like to have them on Twitter, sometimes in Slack communities, sometimes in LinkedIn groups. And I think the analogy I like to use when talking about outbound LinkedIn and all the different channels that you use is I really want to develop like a surround sound element for my prospects. And so if you solely rely on one platform, like LinkedIn is a crucial piece to my puzzle, but I really want my prospects to kind of develop an understanding of the name of Monica on Twitter, like on LinkedIn, on email, on call, on iMessage, on Slack. So that's the first thing that I'll say. The second thing that I'll say kind of builds on that is that because I use a bunch of different platforms and I'm really an omni-channel gal, I think just making these like interactions short and frequent is the most important because people have such low attention spans. Yes. So commenting on people, like obviously commenting and engaging on people's posts, on job updates, little endorsements. If you notice something interesting in their bio, pinging them something small about that. It's really about building up your name. And then with these interactions, which is kind of my third kind of key to success on LinkedIn, is I have 3 pillars or ways that I kind of create content and engage with my prospects. I like to call, like, my first step, I call it shooting the shit with my prospects. So just rapport building, becoming friends, being funny, being charismatic, and trying to build just real relationships and friendships on LinkedIn. The second thing is posting valuable content. So if you're prospecting to lawyers or data scientists, regardless of the ICP, on all the channels that you're prospecting to them, with them, whatever you want to call them or call it, just posting content that is valuable. And then the next thing is relatable, right? So often memes can be relatable, or little blurbs of kind of like, these are the things that really typically pain product marketers, for example. I really like to post those things that are relatable. We're all doing kind of the same struggle, the same job every day, and creating those little relatable tidbits is really important, and people really connect to those.
Lovely. I mean, 3 amazing things, right? I mean, rapport, content, and relatable. I think a lot I mean, they're kind of rated as well. Yeah. And what's your frequency of content? What would be the best time period when people should keep posting relevant content for their ICPs?
Yeah, the sweet spot for me has been posting between 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern time once a day. I think
Mhm.
that if you post more frequently than that, then your original post earlier in the morning might get hindered by a post that you post later on in the day.
Yeah.
So once a day, kind of in that time frame, is my sweet spot. And when I maintain that schedule, is when I get the most engagement from my prospects.
Lovely, lovely. It kind of breaks a myth for me also. I thought one a day is a lot, but thanks for that, Monica. I thought I was too frequent, but I should probably up my game now personally to do at least once a day.
Yeah.
Lovely. Uh, what do you think are the common mistakes that sales reps do? I mean, you see them doing prospecting on LinkedIn, and what are those common mistakes, and how do you think they should avoid them?
Yeah, so a big thing is not optimizing their LinkedIn profile for who they're selling to. A lot of times, like as a salesperson, it says sales, sales, sales all over their LinkedIn, which is just going to scare prospects away. And anyway, just kind of scaring people away by being like having that I'm a salesperson. And then even in the connection request message, saying, hey, I'm connecting with other like lawyers like you, let's connect. And then as a salesperson, it kind of just makes people run and they're just scared and want to run away. So I think toning it down with how salesy you appear on your profile and more appeasing and creating your profile to, just engage your prospects opposed to blasting that you're a salesperson all over your profile. Another just short thing I'll add, a lot of people message me and ask me what's the best connection request message to
Yeah.
send when you're trying to engage with prospects. But the answer is no message. So a lot of times people send a generic, hey, Monica, been loving your content, would love to add you to my network. And it's very easy to tell that they're using a tool, like an automated tool
Yeah.
to like try to reach out to me. And it just feels very bland and generic. But if you're just adding a bunch of people like at scale with no message, it just feels a lot more casual and passive. And I'm a lot more likely to accept that request.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, if they like your content, they just need to follow you. They don't necessarily need to send you a connection, right? I mean, they follow you, they get to read what you post and probably use in their daily life. And yeah, I mean, like you said, sometimes I also feel everybody posting on LinkedIn also become social influencers today, right? So you got to tone it down a little bit. I completely agree with you on that, right? I mean, when you receive these requests, right? Any irrelevant messages that you receive, something that you find funny or something like that, because I often get a lot of messages. Just so you know, I work in the founder's office, which means I work closely with our CEO and CDO on certain strategic initiatives. I mean, they don't read the entire bio, and like you said, they think that I am the founder of Outplay, right? And then their message is like, hey, great, you founded Outplay. I'd be happy if I did that, but then you
Yeah.
understand what I'm saying, right? So
Yeah.
any such irrelevant messages that you receive, or any amusing anecdotes that's kind of memorable for you that you can remember?
Yeah, so I think one thing that's super memorable for me, again, people can, yeah, like just like you said, they'll claim that you're the founder and then message you about being the founder. And it just shows that people aren't doing their due diligence when they're checking you out. I think something that really stands out to me is I appreciate if I've been on a podcast and somebody listens to the episode and they not only mention the episode, but they mention something that I said during the episode. And it
Yeah.
just shows that they're not doing kind of like a general scan and try like some kind of automated tool to pull something from my LinkedIn profile, but mentioning something specific about what I said. Or like I have a couple of niches and things that I post about. And so if they have thoughts on, because I have like kind of 2 or 3 content pillars that I frequently post about. And if
Mhm.
they start to kind of notice those trends and they mention something about that, it just shows that you're doing a bit of a deeper dive into Monica and you're not just using a LinkedIn kind of scraper to scrape something from my profile.
Understand. And you just gave away a great tip to a lot of sales reps who might possibly reach out to you soon if they listen to this podcast. Right.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I
Like
mean,
when
in that
people
note, right, Monica, volume versus personalization, right? Because today sales reps also want to reach out to many people, right?
yeah.
and they forget the fact of, well, I mean, very similar to how email works. I think LinkedIn also has something similar, right? I think should they follow similar rules wherein they, rather than focusing on volume, they focus on personalization and relevance?
Yeah, so I do think that there are messages that you can do that can be general and less personalized. I'm going to like SaaStr next week in San Francisco. So I'm sending out hundreds of generic messages, just kind of asking like senior sales executives if they'll be at SaaStr next week. So I
Mm-hmm.
do think that there's a time and place for general messages. But that's more kind of like just casting a wide net and trying to start conversations.
Yeah.
But when I do want to pitch and just get into like more nuanced things, like it's definitely personalized. So I do think that there's a time and place for that.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, personalized messages is obviously the way.
Yeah.
I receive anywhere between like 75 and 150 connection requests a day. And those personalized messages, when people send me an iMessage, a LinkedIn message, and an email, and they kind of mention these little things about me that you couldn't tell if you were using something automated, is a really big way to stand out to me.
Understand. Yeah, I'm not surprised when you say that you get so many, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, because the next question, is when you send so many messages, like you said, you're going to be at an event, so you want to connect with as many people as possible. You sometimes don't get the responses, or your connection requests aren't accepted, and then LinkedIn have multiple policies around that, right? I mean, if X
Yeah.
number of messages aren't responded, they don't allow you to post new messages, be it
Yeah.
the regular message or the email messages, even in sales now, for example, or
Yeah.
if your connection requests aren't accepted, they block you from sending. While there is no set rule, at least I wouldn't know. I would like to hear from you if there's any such policy or rule of LinkedIn that is documented. But ideally, how would you keep track of the changes that LinkedIn brings in, policy changes especially, right? Or how should sales rep typically understand or know what are those changes that come in every now and then with LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think something that's so difficult about those kind of platforms, the same thing honestly goes with email and Twitter, but is staying really close, like especially to your local community. So there's a couple WhatsApp groups that I'm a part of for Toronto SDR managers. But I think because so many of these rules are basically a secret, I think that it's kind of up to a close network to keep on top of things and see trends, see what people are noticing, and then sharing that more privately. LinkedIn is definitely not posting like press releases or articles on how their algorithm works. So I
Absolutely.
think having a couple core kind of 6, 8, 10 people that you're really close with, and you guys can kind of like experiment on different things and have like weekly or once a month meetings and just kind of talk about trends you're noticing when it comes to that stuff is really important, because you're not going to see it really generally posted anywhere. I think that's kind of what small communities for.
Absolutely right. I mean, I think a lot of people want to get a hang of those communities. It's sometimes not easy to get in there, but then once you get in there, I have personally felt a lot of advantage of understanding those nuances. Like you said, yeah, I think everybody who's really wanting to up their game should be part of those communities, right?
Yeah.
Definitely. As like I earlier said, right, everybody is a content creator or an influencer or LinkedIn, but I also feel that there's a lot of repetitive content, right?
Yeah.
It all sounds the same, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
like probably the fonts and the colors change a little bit, but more or less they sound very similar. And especially if it's the same persona that you're selling to, and there
Yeah.
are probably tons of other people also selling to similar persona, and then they probably write about the same set of challenges or the problems that those set of people face, and it becomes too repetitive. Yeah. So how do you create the content that kind of stands out, and not just standing out, something that engages with your target audience as effectively as possible? Any
Yeah.
pro tip there?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to kind of come up with your own shtick or something that basically sets your content apart, just like you're talking about. So I post a lot of tactical advice on building SDR teams and prospecting, but every time I make one of those posts, I also include a picture of a matcha latte that I drink every morning.
I saw
And
that.
then my name's Monica, and it's kind of has the Monica matcha thing. I can't think of how many times I'm thinking of someone. I know their face from LinkedIn and I kind of know what they post about, but I can't remember their name. And then for 2 hours, I'm trying to find their LinkedIn profile and I can't remember them. But the big thing for me is like a lot of the content that I post the advice and whatever I'm posting, but I have the matcha emoji in my name. And then I post a lot like about my matcha lattes too. So that's just one example of how I kind of try to separate myself from the pack. And then I've had a couple people message me that said, like, I really appreciate what you wrote, but when I saw the matcha latte, I knew it was your post because people are just scanning. They spend 40 minutes with their coffee in the morning scanning LinkedIn, and then they're like, oh, let me engage because that's Monica's post. Yeah. So I think like obviously everybody can't post about matcha lattes, but basically having something a little like personal that kind of separates you and then you become known for those kind of posts. Another like style of post that I do very often and I'm becoming a little bit known for them is posting about hiring managers that are hiring for SDRs, specifically remote SDRs. Mm-hmm. So connecting hiring managers to job seekers. And I've posted a little bit some memes lately as well. I don't know if I'll keep posting those because I think the job seeker thing and the matcha thing is good. And I think the other thing that's really important is not going in too many directions. I kind of want to be known for one or two things. And then it makes what I'm doing very clear, very noticeable, and it's not too scattered basically, but come up with your own version of the matcha Monica thing, I guess.
The matcha Monica. Now we got to know your secret sauce right now, the matcha Monica.
Yeah, exactly.
Lovely. Right, but then, like you said, I mean, personal identity, personal branding, and finding that niche kind of becomes important, right? And then sticking to it, and being as repetitive as possible. Some way plugging it into all your content is also kind of important. That's nice, I mean, every single word that you say also kind of resonates with me now because I also have to do all of these, right? It's just not, it's just not for the world. It's also for me. And lovely. I mean, nice tip there. And then earlier you also said that, people should have, rather than scaring people, they should have good profiles, right? Good LinkedIn profiles. And sales reps, they're very, very, rather than sounding very salesy, right? How should they write their profiles? How, crafting a compelling profile on LinkedIn that kind of attracts leads and, it should kind of trigger some attention as well, right? So any tip there, any advice there?
Yeah, so I think even when it comes to the basics, even before like it comes to writing, the amount of like LinkedIn requests that I get from people where the picture, like their LinkedIn profile picture is super dark, you can't even like hardly see them, or they have like a negative expression on their face. I think like some of the like basics of like having a clear picture of yourself with a warm facial expression, like with some sunlight on your face, and it doesn't look like you log into like LinkedIn once every 3 or 4 months when you're trying to find a new job. Having a compelling cover photo that talks a little bit about you, like personally, but also talks about what you do and how you help your prospects. So what I really try to do on both LinkedIn and Twitter is, again, have this personal element because people want to do business with people that they know, like, and trust. And if you share a little bit about yourself personally, then you become like a real person and not just an avatar on LinkedIn. And then mix that with the professional stuff, which is also kind of where the Matcha Monica thing comes in. Having a very digestible, simple, and short tagline where it describes what you're doing. I think in my tagline, I say that I'm a BDR leader. I'm an SDR Fury job mom because I help SDRs land jobs. And I also help early stage startups basically build their GTM motion from scratch. And it's three very clear, short, simple things about what I do. And just in your tagline, say, helping internal communications teams retain employees by XYZ if you're like selling an internal communication software, right? So I think just making it very simple and not too cluttered. I think a lot of people want to put too much on their LinkedIn, that when there's too much, there's nothing because it's not clear. Start posting, engaging with your prospects, and really start from the basics. I think that people overcomplicate things and then they get stuck in their heads and they never start. So I think the important thing is to start and execute well on the basics and just posting and engaging with your prospects.
Yeah, I was there, and I was stuck, for a very long time. Like you said, I didn't even update my picture. My profile picture was probably 10 years old, and when I was meeting somebody, like you said, for a job interview, they said, "Is that really you?" When I
Yeah,
went there face to face, right? And
yeah.
and very very important, right? And a little diversion from here, right? I mean, would you ask ChatGPT to write your profile? Should sales reps ask ChatGPT to write their profile?
Great question. I think absolutely not. Occasionally, I use ChatGPT for prompts to just kind of get a couple ideas, or if I have a base thought to like maybe elaborate a little bit on my thought or give me some ideas within the main idea. But I think that my style of writing, I use a lot of a little like ellipses, like dots when I write. I use a lot of dashes, and I feel like the way that I write, the spacing and how you kind of read it and how it comes down the page is very like it's quirky and it's Monica. And
Yeah,
I think that it's really important that people maintain their voice, whether they're trying to be kind of like have a more serious persona, like a quirky persona. I think that your voice is like a beautiful thing that makes you who you are, like as an
true,
individual.
true.
And obviously, Chat GPT makes us sound very robotic.
Yeah.
Um, so use it for prompts, but try to maintain your own voice and style because that's what
Yeah.
makes you you, right?
Yeah, yeah. But and then again, going back to what you said, where do you draw the line between posting something professional versus personal, right? Because I mean, would you probably post a picture of your vacation on LinkedIn? I mean, like you said earlier, be yourself. But then, personally for me, that's not me. I wouldn't post something that's very personal on LinkedIn. But should
Yeah.
people draw a line here?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of nuance to like kind of personal and professional. Like what I do, like I'm not going to post something too personal on my LinkedIn, but for example, I did some traveling this summer when I was in Europe, and I kind of looped it how like into how I was grateful for remote work. And these are the
Yeah,
10 things that remote work has done for me. And I was able to spend time in Europe with my family because of my like remote work situation, for example. So I think there is a line, and I can't exactly clearly say what it is, but I
yeah.
think saying or sharing something that's generally personal, but as long as you can loop it into something that relates to like something professional as well, is a good balance, I would say.
Agree, right? And I mean, being honest, being genuine also is very important, right? So how do you maintain that genuinity? How do you maintain that honesty when you're while still being sales oriented, not being salesy but sales oriented, bringing
Yeah.
that kind of
So
authenticity, honesty and authenticity, if I may ask you.
Yeah, so I think it goes back to a couple things that we talked about earlier in this discussion. I really try to stick to the two or three niches or content pillars that I use when posting. I love sharing tactical advice on how to build SDR teams. I love matcha. I love posting about matcha. I love helping job seekers find SDR jobs. And I obviously enjoy comedy and I enjoy sales, and I enjoy how those two things pull together. So that's the first thing, and I really stick to those content pillars. And the second thing is just not using like Chat GPT for my actual posts and maintaining that kind of Monica voice and the spacing of how I write, the dots of how I write. It all really pulls into who I am. So I think that if you stick to using your own voice and you develop your own content pillars and you have two or three things that you frequently post about, and you're not going in too many like different directions, I think that you're kind of defining who you are and what your presence and personality is on LinkedIn. And if you stick to that and you're consistent with it over a long period of time, I think people appreciate it and they know it's genuine and they know it's you, because that's been you for a long time and you're being consistent with it.
Absolutely right. I mean, since we were talking about consistency or persistence, if I can use them synonymously, right?
Yeah,
You persistently reach out to people, and you're not obviously going to be getting responses from every single one of them. Do you
right.
continue reaching out to them, or first and foremost thing, sales reps need to handle rejections, but
Yeah.
you probably identify one profile, one persona, one ICP whom you feel like, hey, he or she is definitely going to have a need for my product or my solution, but then they kind of ghost you or they probably don't respond to you. How do you handle these rejections? And should we still be persistent and keep messaging them? What's your take on that?
Yeah. So what I do, I was talking to a VP of sales about this yesterday. What I do is kind of a couple cycles of what I call like bursts and rests. So I'll do these little burst outreach periods where for 3 or 4 weeks, I'll kind of have two, three, four touch points within a 3 to 4 week period. It depends on the persona, it depends on like a bunch of different things. But I'll do this kind of basically once a week burst of doing outreach to a prospect for a month. And then I'll put them in a kind of rest or nurture period for 2 or 3 weeks, because a lot of times, like, it's not the right time. Like, work is busy, personal life is busy for prospects, and they're not engaging kind of during that initial burst period. So I put them into a bit of a nurture, and then I re-enroll them into a different sequence, which is kind of my second like burst period. And then I'll do another, that'll be a month. Then I'll put them in another 3 to 4 week rest. And then I'll do my last burst. So these sequences or just kind of arrangements of how I do outreach take quite a long time. But I think a lot of times when people do prospecting, they'll do 4 to 6 kind of emails to a prospect, and then they give up and they're constantly trying to find new contacts. But a lot of times it's just not the right time to like be doing outreach to that person for a variety of reasons. And you can always come back to those initial contacts. So that's how I do that.
Sure. I mean, I definitely want to go back to what you said at the start of this conversation, right? I mean, omni-channel is definitely the way forward. It's just not going to be only LinkedIn messages. It's going to be probably, like you said, go on Twitter, send you an iMessage, send you an email, multiple things. And then, after a few touches, multiple touch points, yeah, probably you start a conversation. But yeah, that's the burst and rest strategy sounds very exciting, right? And if you have separate sequences defined for a specific period of time, be it nurture, be it the next burst and so on. I mean, that's amazing, right? That's something that I think is going to be a very, very valuable tip for a lot of sales guys here, right? Do you also use LinkedIn groups by any chance? In any success with them? How does it work?
I think that what I use, I often notice that LinkedIn groups are created, but there's not necessarily a lot of action in the groups once it has like 600 participants. I think what is great about LinkedIn groups is finding prospects and kind of creating target account lists and target contact lists. So in all honesty, that's what I primarily use them for.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me hear from you, if you don't mind, right? A success story of a LinkedIn outreach campaign that probably exceeded your expectation. It did more than what you expected. Any such memorable success story which you can share with all the listeners?
Yeah, for sure. So one really big tip, and I think honestly, a lot of organizations don't do this, but I really think they should. Early in my career, I was prospecting to tax lawyers, and I was using somebody who had a master's in taxation, which is a degree that's quite difficult to get. And then I basically compared that to like using a more general managing partner at the company's profile to do prospecting. And so if you're prospecting from somebody who has a master's in taxation to tax lawyers that might also have like a master's in taxation, there's really that kind of like community between those like two kind of people. And this applies to any ICP. Anyway, I compared that outreach to the exact same messaging that I used prospecting to a managing partner's profile. And I think we got like 8x the results using that person who had the MTAX to do the prospecting than just somebody who is a lot more general. I think a lot of SDRs and AEs are doing prospecting from their own profiles, but like data scientists want to network and connect with other like data scientists. Chief nursing officers really want to connect with other chief nursing officers. So something I would challenge C-suite executives to think about, especially at smaller, more nimble, like adaptable organizations, is prospecting from kind of like a prospect's profile to another prospect, because they're just a lot more likely to engage and respond. And so getting 8x the results that I was using, like kind of comparing those two profiles, was huge. And it really showed me that people want to connect with just their peers, right?
Absolutely. But all of this with just one profile, correct?
Depends on the organization, depends on the size. In this, for this company, it was just one person's profile. But again, if you have a cut, like it just depends. Like that was that situation, but there's a lot of ways to spin it.
Nice. That's amazing, right? Okay. If I were to kind of summarize a few things that I've learned, right? Please add on. I would like your last remarks as we end this session, right? First and foremost thing, like you said, LinkedIn cannot be the only channel. It has to be omni-channel. Don't scare people. Ensure that you tone down and make it something relevant. Okay, relevance is definitely important. Volume versus personalization, a mixture of both, like you said, and importantly, create a personal identity, a personal brand, like the match harmonica, something that kind of resonates with you. Be your own self, but something that can also trigger interest in people. Of course, your three pillars work like a charm. A rapport building, create relatable content, very important, and like you said, something that people can relate with, right? Or people can have a good context of what you're doing, right? And yeah, I mean, like you said, the bursts and rest, brilliant stuff, right? I mean, that's something that will work wonders. As ending notes, anything else that I've left out, or any good key piece of advice that you would like to give to all the listeners to improve their outreach on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are intimidated by LinkedIn outreach. And I think while like quality and quantity of outreach, like it's important to have a good balance. Don't overthink things and just get started, and do a lot of A/B testing. I think that's the biggest thing. So a lot of times I'll send like 30 or 40 messages that follow a particular style, and then something that has a different style. And then over a period of 4 or 5 days, kind of compare response rates. So do a lot of A/B testing. And then the last thing is just start with the basics with your profile. Like, do you have a bright like profile picture with sunlight, with a warm facial expression? Have a cover photo that has a little bit about you, both personally and professionally. Having a very digestible, simple tagline that clearly explains what you do. And basically having just enough with your bio, not too little, but not too much. If you'd like any advice, I talk to lots of job seekers and SDRs, giving them advice on a daily basis. So feel free to reach out to me, and I would be happy to chat with you.
Lovely, lovely. Wonderful. Thanks, Monica. That's so kind of you. And all those listeners, Monica is definitely kind enough to let you guys to message her and then get some advice. Please make the best of it. Wonderful, Monica. Thank you so much once again. And it was great having you today for Outbound, for Dummies from Outplay. And for all those listening to this amazing session, there are a lot more videos from Outplay on various topics for outbounding, for improving your outreach. Go to outplayhq.com to check out those videos as well. Once again, Monica, thank you so much. It was amazing having you here.
Yeah, awesome. Great speaking with you. Talk soon.